Welcome to another exciting episode of our radio lecture on the course EDCR 111, the School Curriculum, Social Change and National Development. Today we're going to look at the determinants of the school curriculum, and we may have the discussion for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll give an opportunity to our dear listeners and students to call in and then tell us. We're going to have a debate as to whether the factors we're going to discuss, which of them happens to be the most important that we need to emphasize during the design of the curriculum. And so the studio lines will be activated by exactly 6 p.m. So you can call on the line 0503 923 0332320201. You can as well as send your WhatsApp and text messages via the same lines. We are streaming live on Facebook at Radio WINNEBA 98.3 FM, at Twitter at WINNEBA 983 FM, Instagram WINNEBA 98.3 FM, and so on and so forth. So to do the honors today, myself, Ms. MIRIAM of the Department of Educational Foundations, Faculty of Educational Studies, and
Stephen Kwachiapel.
Great. So, Steve, over the past few weeks, we've been looking at issues related to the curriculum. We looked at the characteristics of the curriculum. We looked at some of the terminologies associated with the term curriculum. This evening, we are privileged to have a lecture with our students on the determinants of the school curriculum. In other words, the various curricula that are being implemented in schools across the country, be it basic, senior high, or tertiary. What goes into it? Which factors do we consider when planning the school curriculum? So that is what our lecture is going to center on this evening. Yeah, so if we say the determinants of curriculum, what do we expect our learners to be familiar with at this point?
All right, thank you very much for the opportunity, Ms. MIRIAM. At this point, what our students have to understand is that curriculum does not germinate. It is as a result of several forces that shape what students learn in the school. And so, if you find yourself in the school, whether you are a student or you are a teacher, what you have to bear in mind is that certain things would determine what you have to learn and what you don't have to learn. And so those things that determine or that shape what students take in school, what teachers teach in school, and how school should even be about are those things that we refer to as determinants of the school curriculum.
Great. And so this evening, like my colleague have rightly said, our students, if it were to be the normal face-to-face, we would ask you what are some of the things that you will consider in order to have a successful stay for the various programs you are reading. And I'm sure you are going to mention to us the fact that you need to be attending lectures, you need to manage your time appropriately, and do the right thing at the right time, listen to radio lecture, partake in all assignments, both during the face-to-face and then the elements. So it's the same way in planning the school curriculum. There are certain things that we need to consider in order to make sure that at the end of the day, the aims and intentions behind whatever we want the students to learn will be achieved. And so we are going to look at a number of these factors this evening, and as we've mentioned, when the phone lines are activated, we expect you to partake by telling us your stance as far as the determinants are concerned, whether the teacher or the teachers and learners, which of them should be considered most during curriculum development. And so we are going to look at factors related to government policy, the learners, the existing curriculum itself, the society, teachers, philosophical issues, and examination bodies. And so we would like to take each of them one after the other. So can we begin with the government policy? To what extent can we say that the school curriculum that we practicing in schools is affected by government policies?
All right, thank you, Miss Miriam. I'll start by saying that since the colonial era up to this very time, governments, in the sense that even when we have not had our independence, the colonial government was still determining how education should be, how students should be taught, the kind of things that students should be taught.
Sure.
And that is why at that time you realize that British curricula, British history dominated our school curriculum. Beyond that, we moved to 1951, where native-born Ghanaians assumed leadership of this country. And you realize that from 1951 up till today, as we speak, governments continue to determine what students should learn and what students should not learn. The fact is that whether you like it or not, every school is a government property.
Sure.
And so it is the government that determines how the school should be. I won't take you far. Ghana experienced its first case of COVID-19 on the 12th of March 2020. On the 16th of March, the government announced that all schools should close down. Whether you like it or not, you can be a teacher, you can be a learner, you can be a parent, you can be whoever you want to be. But because government determines what goes on in school, the government could say all schools should close down. And so it is non-negotiable when it comes to government dealing with educational issues. One thing our students have to understand is that the government does these things that we are talking about through legislative acts and administrative policies.
Sure.
So through various legislative acts, successive governments have been able to influence our school curriculum. Now, government says we shouldn't take school fees. Whether you like it or not, I know there are still people who have the idea that why don't we allow even those who can afford to pay? Government says whether you can afford or not, don't pay. Here, we will say that government has influenced our school system.
Sure.
You move beyond this, you are talking about free education. Government says because it's free, now the infrastructure cannot take all the students we have at a time, so we should run double track. You can be a teacher, you can be a student, you can be a parent, irrespective of how satisfied or unsatisfied you are. It is the government. How can the government do all this? Government recruit teachers. So as our students are here, it is the government who is paying for their training. It is this same government that will determine what you should go to the school to teach. You cannot go and say, oh, when I was in the university, I was taught this, so I want to teach it. The one who paid for your training would tell you what you have to teach, when you have to teach, not just what, how, when. Because now government says all school students should use computers. That is what the government is saying. As a teacher, you should also arm yourself, because once you get there, the government will determine what you have to do even in your classroom. Because of double track, government says every period should no longer be 30 minutes. Rather, it should be 1 hour. School should start at 7 and it should end at 4 p.m. These are few examples to let our cherished listeners and our viewers understand that as far as the role of the government in our educational system is concerned, it is non-negotiable. The government would continue to determine, from accelerated development plan of education to F-cube to double track. There are various instances in our system where governments continue. I know you are thinking, okay, what about the university? We say it is an autonomous institution. When you want to run any program, you need accreditation from a government subsidiary agency. So as for schooling, we are here to serve the society. The society has appointed the government. The government supervises all school systems in Ghana. And that is why when the new curriculum came, they did not call teachers. When this comprehensive sexuality thing came,
No.
they didn't call teachers. They called the government because they believe that it is the government who determines what should be taught, when it should be taught, and how it should be taught.
Yeah. So that was a brilliant history behind the role that government policies play as far as education is concerned, and the fact that we shouldn't forget, yes, our stay here, our studying and everything is being financed by government. And one may ask, who at all is that? This government? It was you and I who nominated who should lead us. And so whatever policies they are doing, it is done in consultation, like he rightly said, through various legislation. So it isn't something that is imposed on us. It passed through parliament, and then once parliament gives the approval, we all accept, and then we're good to go. So that was a brilliant history behind the role that government policies play as far as the determinant of curriculum is concerned. Yes, but in addition to that, we realize that it is this same government that provides the resources. So it is government that provides the resources in determining the curriculum. In that, when they go to the drawing table, it is government that provides or looks out for the experts in the field. They finance them, keep them, in terms of writing, organizing of series of workshops for teachers and other stakeholders to understand the nitty-gritties of the curriculum. And so the role that government plays when it comes to curriculum development can never be undermined, and we should never undermine that. At the end of the day, whatever document that comes out of the curriculum, it is this same government who is going to employ people, both teaching and non-teaching staff, to ensure that the needs of that particular document is being understood by all that are involved. And so we're going to take another look at another determinant of the curriculum. Here we're going to look at the societal consideration. In our previous studies on the characteristics of the curriculum, we made mention of the fact that the curriculum is meant to serve the needs of society. So in other words, it is what the society wants that the curriculum tries to serve. And so with the issue of when that sexuality component was introduced into the new curriculum, that was a draft version, of course. Society came out, there was a public outcry. No, we don't want our learners to study this at this point in time. And so societal views were heard, and then the redress was done on that. Societal needs at this point, our dear listeners should understand that our needs could be social, they could be economic, religious, political. And so it is these needs that we have as a society that we wish that learners who will undergo a particular curriculum would come and then serve. In the era of the castle schools, we realized that the basic components that were taught in schools were the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. And so basically that was what they were teaching. But you and I will understand that in this era that we find ourselves, our ability to read, write, and do simple arithmetic will not enable us to function effectively and productively as members of this cherished country. And so our society, the needs of society also keeps changing. It is dynamic. So our needs in the 19th century is no longer going to be our needs in the 20th century, and it's the same way this 21st century, our needs will keep changing. Our dear listeners will bear with us that the needs they had when they were in JHS or when they were in senior high school isn't the same. Even as they are on campus now, I'm very sure that in the next 5 years, if they should be drawing their plans for the next 5 years, it will no longer include something like I would want to have a first degree because they are obtaining it. So if they want to do any further studies, it will be something outside the first degree. So it's the same way societal needs keep changing, and so it is important that the curriculum is also reviewed to meet that varying needs of the society. So the role of society is also important and hence serves as a key factor in determining the school curriculum. We have others. Let's look at the learners. The learners, and I wish we could leave this out to our teachers, but our dear listeners, for them to phone in and they make their contribution. Learners and teachers, which of them should we emphasize the most in curriculum development? Should it be the teachers or the learners? What do you think?
So when it is time, we will give our learners the opportunity to phone in and they share their thoughts on these things. But just to add a little to the issue of the society as a determinant of the school curriculum, you have pointed out clearly, but we should have instances to let our students know that there had been certain subjects in the school curriculum that are no longer there. It is because the needs of the society have changed. We no longer need those subjects. So some of you did life skills. Design and make an artifact. Auntie Muni always puts her wache on the floor. Anytime she tries to sell, houseflies hover around the wache. Question: design and make an artifact. Write a brief. All these things, we no longer find them in the school curriculum because the needs of the society have changed.
Yeah.
So anytime that the needs of the society changes, the curriculum has to change to meet the needs of the society. Students have to know that they are here to be trained just for two purposes. They are not here to be trained to go and get jobs. One, to go and innovate the societal culture, and two, to go and more or less preserve those values that are worthwhile. So whatever you are learning here has to be in sync with the needs of the very society that brought you here. If not, you get back and you become a societal misfit. So once you go out and you are not getting a job, begin to ask yourself questions. Did I do the right program that is in line with the needs of the society? Before democracy, we were not teaching our students anything about democracy because already the society is controlled by soldiers, coup d'etat. Now we find ourselves in democratic era, and that is why students are learning about democracy. Before we discovered oil, we were not doing oil and gas in our schools. But now there is oil. The need of the society has changed. We need people to go and man the oil fields. Moral decadence. Assuming in the next 5 years, all of us become morally upright, a subject like RME would become worthless in the school curriculum. And so every now and then, we should know that the society is dynamic. It will get to a point that these programs, these courses that we cherish so much, we may not have them in the school curriculum.
Sure, absolutely. And so that was right on point. So we're leaving that of the learners and teachers, but we need to introduce them a bit to the concept. Or since that has already been mentioned, we'll leave that to them to judge, the learners and then the teachers. Which of them should we emphasize most as far as the design of the curriculum is concerned? If you just joined us, this is Radio WINNEBA. We are having a lecture series on the course EDCR 111, the school curriculum, social change, and national development. Our topic for today is on the determinants of the school curriculum. And so, few minutes away from now, the phone lines will be activated. We will be expected to phone, ask questions, make contributions, seek for clarifications. And then there's a debate on the board, the teacher and then the learner, who should be considered most in curriculum development. The phone lines will be activated and you can call through 0503 923158, 0332 320201. You can as well as send your text and WhatsApp messages through the same media. All right, so we're looking at the role that examination bodies play as far as the determinant of the curriculum is concerned. That is another critical area that we have to consider. The demands of examinations to some examination bodies like WINNEBA, like the various universities that are autonomous on their own. So they conduct examinations for colleges of education and as well as their own students. The National Teaching Council cannot be left out as an examination body. The Nursing and Midwifery Council can equally not be left out. And so if we say that, or if we are establishing that examination bodies serve as a determinant of the curriculum, what do we want our students to understand? Is it that there's this examination bodies determine what should be taught or learned in the schools, or what?
Yes, so to an extent, these examination bodies also have a role to play. But their role, yes, even though it's very critical, comparatively, others might supersede the role of the examination body. That is why they are only there to offer advice, the necessary advice. Because if the students complete senior high school, they have to come to the university. Therefore, universities have to be aware of what the students are learning at the senior high school.
Sure.
West Africa examination bodies, West Africa Examination Council, they are those going to assess the students. They need to know what the students are learning so that they can offer appropriate assessment, whatever, when the time is due. Don't forget that these examination bodies, they have assessed students for a very long time. They have comprehensive data on areas that the students can master so easily, areas that students struggle to respond, and so on and so forth. And so when they come on board, they just come to supplement, more or less, to give better ideas to the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment. That is the legally mandated body to oversee the design and implementation of pre-tertiary curriculum in Ghana. That is the little I can say when it comes to.
Okay. So if I understood you very well, we're trying to look at examination bodies playing an advisory role. And so they advise curriculum planners or curriculum developers in areas or the content areas where students have mastery over and so in planning of the curriculum, they take this advice in good counsel, and they also know how to go about everything, so that in terms of the implementation, we know where the strengths and weaknesses of the learners are. Sure. Okay, so at this point, I think the phone lines can be activated whilst we continue with the other determinants of the curriculum. If you just joined us, our topic for today is on the determinants of the school curriculum, and we are from the Department of Educational Foundations. You can call or send your text messages through 0503 923158 or 0332 3202 and 01. Yeah, so we're going to look at another, all these things we are saying, that societal consideration, government policies, and the role of learners and teachers, examination bodies. We can't leave the issue of finance out of this. It is so critical that we allocate enough budget to planning of the curriculum, the implementation, and even the evaluation of the curriculum. Yeah, hello, dear caller. Can you tell us your name and your department?
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Abi. From the Hypers. Yes, Abi Shadrach from the Hypers department.
Great, Shadrach.
Madam.
Yeah.
Please, I would like to contribute to the debate on board.
Okay.
About teachers and then the learners.
Great.
Who are going to be more important when.
Great. Oh, we've lost our dear caller. In fact, I was about to comment. I think Shadrach has been one of the consistent callers. And so at the end of the show, I think we need to acknowledge consistent callers as far as this program is concerned. All right. So, yes, we are going to look at. So, Shadrach, the phone lines are still activated. You can call back. Let's look at the issue of financial priorities and constraints.
So, yes, very, very important. In designing the school curriculum, everything that you put in the curriculum has financial implication.
Sure.
Whether it's the content itself, the resource itself, or even the duration of schooling, all these have financial implications. Let's take our minds back to when senior high school was increased from 3 to 4 years. You need to expand your infrastructure. You need to recruit more teachers. You need to increase capitation grant for the schools, and so on and so forth. And so in designing a school curriculum, you have to ask yourself, am I ready for...
Hello, dear caller.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, this radio WINNEBA. You are back, right?
Yeah, Abby, my line dropped.
Oh, all right.
Okay. Please, I think that both are factors that are very important to consider.
Great.
But you realize that the curriculum is actually designed, which is to be facilitated by the teachers. But then the learners are always put in the center of the teaching and learning process. So I think that the learners are considered more than sometimes the teachers. That is my contribution on that.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was a wonderful one. All right.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right.
And so there are a series of examples that we can give to show that the whole curriculum enterprise, from the design to the implementation to evaluation, it is all about resources. You cannot assemble experts and keep them anywhere, so you stay in your house and you come and work. No. You need to put them in a hotel. The whole design of the curriculum sometimes span about 2 years.
Yes, sure.
That the design itself might span for about 2 years. And so if they even have to spend averagely about 6 months in a hotel, then you need to know you are dealing with 9 subjects now. You may not have less than 6 people forming a panel for each subject. You need to house these people for this number of days that we are talking about. You need resource. And that is why in our country, Ghana, sometimes even though we know it is right, you have to review the curriculum. But the money that even goes into the assembling of the experts, not to talk about the printing of the draft, inviting experts from other countries to oversee the design, consultants that you have to recruit, it's a whole thing on its own. Beyond that, anything that you put in the curriculum, like I said earlier, has a financial implication. You have a topic in the curriculum, learners should learn coding. Invariably, you are saying we should provide each learner with a laptop or a computer.
Or any device that will enable them to learn that.
This is something that needs money. So it is up to your priorities versus your constraints.
Sure.
As a country, what are you prioritizing? There are times that we know the right thing, but because it has financial implications, you can't put it there. This is where government comes in. It is government who is going to sponsor the curriculum. And so once government thinks that I don't have enough money.
Yeah, hello, caller, dear caller, your name and your department.
Please, I'm Dennis from Political Science Department. Level 100.
All right. Yeah, can we hear you?
Please, my contribution between the teacher and then the learner who must considered most is the teacher.
Great.
Yes, I think it's the teacher who must be considered most because they know the characteristics of the students. So they distribute the curriculum to the students. So they know the cognitive of the students. So I think they must be considered most.
Okay. So thank you very much. So you think that the teachers know the learners most, and so they should be considered most as far as planning of the curriculum is concerned. That was wonderful. Yeah, so you can still keep your calls and your messages coming in. We are still having the debate on the teachers and learners. Which of them should be considered most in curriculum development? Great.
And so, as for the issue of finance, we can't do away with it. You look at the resource that you have, that you design a curriculum to match that resource. If not, you design a beautiful curriculum, like they are complaining, there are no textbooks. Even though the curriculum may be whatever, one of the best we have seen as a country, the lack of resources can impede the implementation of the curriculum.
Great. And so, apart from the fact that we need resources to assemble the experts, we need resources to get the necessary teaching and learning, we also know very well that, like, the debate is ongoing, the teachers and the learners. And so if it's about the teachers, then we need to also devote enough resources in terms of the teacher development, organizing series, and I think these workshops shouldn't be 1 or 2. In fact, we need to keep organizing, the nation needs to keep organizing series of workshops just to get the teachers abreast. Imagine you were teaching a subject and all of a sudden this subject has been taken off the curriculum. Now you are going to teach a different subject. And one-time workshop wouldn't be enough for you to understand the nitty-gritties of that particular subject that you're going to teach. So it needs to be continuous, because knowledge itself, it keeps changing since we keep conducting more research here and there. So yes, it is important that if we're considering the teacher, the workshops that we organize is woefully inadequate.
Should I tell you my personal opinion about this?
Sure.
I feel that sometimes teachers have to pay for these workshops.
And I think government has done that. So now they are paying.
Good. So that we don't put all the burden. We don't put all the burden, as we said, the moment we leave everything to the government, it means that it will get to a point, once the government says, I don't have money, there will be no workshop for teachers. Yes. So teachers should also find ways and means to develop themselves, and that is why there is professional learning communities in the schools these days, so that it will keep teachers on their toes to do more than just looking at the government for everything.
Great. So we have some few messages from our dear students or viewers. This one reads, good evening, madam. My name is Abdul Gafar Yusuf, Geography Department. Please, we find it difficult at this time because we have lectures. Thank you for your hard work. Okay, thank you. But I think that the audio have been recorded, so whenever you close from lectures, you can still read and then make your understand that all that we've been saying over here. And I think it will stay for 40 Facebook Live, for 24 hours. So I think you will not lose that much. Hi, I'm Enoch, a student of Political Science Department. To my understanding, teachers must be emphasized the most because it is the teachers who are to grade the students in all aspects of their studies. So Enoch is looking at the grading aspect, the A's and the B pluses and the rest. Please, can religion be a determinant in curriculum development? Abe from Hypers. So Abe wants to find out whether religion can be a determinant of the curriculum. You are streaming live on Facebook, Twitter at WINNEBA 983 FM, Instagram WINNEBA 98.3 FM, YouTube Radio WINNEBA 98.3 FM. our topic for today is on the determinants of the school curriculum, and we're doing the honors. Myself, Miss MIRIAM, and Mr. Stephen APAU. Okay, so can religion be, a student wants to find whether religion itself can be a determinant of the school curriculum?
and so when we talk about the cross-cultural factors, sure, obviously religion comes to play in these cross-cultural issues. You are designing a curriculum. This one links both cross-cultural issues as well as society. So what kind of society do we live in? What are the predominant religious organizations? You have to look at that. Then when it comes to cross-cultural issues, you have to look at, so you design a curriculum for these three religious groups. It must cut across. When you are teaching people who find themselves within a particular area with a dominant religious body, that subject or that topic should be emphasized more. And that is why you go to the northern schools and most of them are doing IRS instead of CRS. Cross-cultural issues.
So the point is that we take care of most of the religions in the curriculum. So
yes,
we consider them, their practices and everything. That is why, for instance, if you're a Christian and you're in an Islamic school, Juma prayer, they're closing at 12 every Friday, and you will close. We take care of that. It's the same way if you go to some of these government-assisted missionary schools. They have certain dates that they observe on the church calendar, and all these things are observed in the schools. Great. So religion itself, to some extent, in terms of cross-cultural factors, we take care of that as a factor in determining the school curriculum. We were on financial priorities and constraints. So in this country, we've said that for international best practices, ideally every 5 years, it is important that we review the curriculum, because our needs, you can't have the same needs for 5 years. I think as personal as we are, having one need for 5 good years.
Take the development of technology, for example.
Sure.
iPhone Pro Max.
Almost every year they release.
Yes. And so if you still have a curriculum that is based on iPhone 8 or iPhone 7 Plus, then you should obviously know that you are lacking behind. And that is why by 5 years, the International Bureau of Education argues that maximum 5 years we have to revise our school curriculum.
But unfortunately, because of our financial status, we're not able to do that. In fact, if you look at some of the subjects, those teachers who taught us, myself, they kept telling us that it is the same thing they were also taught. And so they used that same thing to teach me. And the one I was also I was using that same knowledge.
Yes.
So financial priority, financial constraints, in fact, it is a huge burden as far as periodic reviewing of the curriculum is concerned.
And let our students understand that the moment you allow foreign donors to give you money to design a school curriculum, it has an effect on the kind of content you are going to have. And so in as much as you may say the society, the government, this and that, financial priorities and constraints, because you are constrained financially, somebody will give you money, and the next moment the person is dictating what should go into. So this whole comprehensive sexuality, green economy, mostly because we are not financially stable, and because we have not prioritized our school curricula the way it's supposed to be, most of the time they are all determined by foreign partners.
Exactly. And if we just look at the role that government also plays as a determinant of the curriculum, which government will prioritize issues related to curriculum to say that, we are developing, are the electorates ready to even hear that at the first place?
Yes.
That we are developing a new curriculum.
Every 5 years.
Every 5 years, that is what
we go for huge money.
Then unless you are not ready to stay in power for long, other than that, you wouldn't be mentioning. In fact, those things that will appeal to your electorates, that is where you emphasize, that is where you make the noise, that is where you advertise, but not issue. Last 2 years, and apart from the sexuality content that was introduced, many people did not even know that the curriculum was undergoing review, apart from those who were in the education sector. So it's like we don't prioritize it at the first place,
and that is why,
because we don't even have the finance.
That is why I tell my students that by the time you complete, if you are not careful, the things you are learning might have become obsolete.
Sure.
So the things we learned in senior high school, most of them shouldn't have been there in the first place. Because I'll take the history curriculum, for example. The last review was 2007.
I think 2014 they did something.
In 2012, there was an attempt, but it was limited to only maths, English, and science. You'll be there, and all that you hear is that, oh, they've taken this topic from the curriculum. There is no official document binding that, okay, henceforth, these things are no more part. You will be there, and it's even a teacher. If you're fortunate, then your teacher will tell you these things
And
you
I
are.
think
Do you know the reason?
it is only the examination bodies that even help us. Other than that, nobody would have been in the known.
Yes. And do you know what? The textbook that is being used to teach history at the senior high school, do you know when it was written? The textbook was written in 1990, Ara Dufenin and Co. The curriculum itself was developed in 2007. So you can just imagine, the textbooks were there even before the curriculum. So whilst the curriculum is actually supposed to support, the textbooks have to support the curriculum. Or we deriving the textbooks from the curriculum. We are rather deriving the curriculum from the textbook. And so students are there and they are still learning the Nile is Egypt, Egypt is Nile. The Bantu, the Bebe, the so. Madam, what is funny? What is funny?
Interesting. You see, the point is that at this point, in fact, if you are teaching and you really want to go far, you have to take the burden of. If you want to rely on, most of these textbooks are outmoded. In fact, some of them were even outmoded at birth, and so you realize that when you want to rely on it, you will never be doing your students good. So you need to improvise. You need to research, find out knowledge on your own, so that you'll be able to teach the students. But if you want to continue relying on textbooks, some of the textbooks are the first place are not even approved by government. You see, or neither was they approved by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment. Yeah. If you just joined us, we're having a radio lecture on the course, the school curriculum, social change, and then national development. We're looking at the determinants of the curriculum, and this evening we want our students to comment on the teacher and the learner who is to be emphasized the most in curriculum development. So we have some messages from our listeners. This one reads, good evening to the lecturers and your listeners. My question is, if really the environment is a factor to consider when designing a curriculum, do the designers consider environmental differences in designing the curriculum? Example, talking about the independent square in the curriculum, how would this benefit a pupil in the village? Azibila Hyper's department. Okay, so if I understood this message very well, we're looking at the role of environment in determining the curriculum. So independent square is in Accra. How would this site in Accra, independent, benefit the student in a village somewhere else? Okay.
I think the whole idea that he has to understand is there are important locations within every jurisdiction that learners must know. So we stating Independence Square in the book does not necessarily mean that you have to teach the students only about the Independence Square. There are important places in your community that can equally serve the purpose of the Independence Square. On every 6th March, students go to march at Independence Square. In your village, there is no place labeled as Independence Square, but there is a place where people go.
Yeah.
Yes, that place has become what? Independence Square. As teachers, our problem is that we always want to go by what is in the textbook. You can go to the level of the learners so that they will appreciate it. Nobody is saying draw Independence Square on the board for the students to copy into the exercise books. The whole idea is that they must know the important locations in the community. That is all.
And if they also have such sites that are historic to their local area, I think that should be mentioned. Okay, I am Bintum Mawon Sani from Political Science Department Level 100. The debate on the topic drawing school curriculum, who should be considered. I think students should be more centered in drawing the school curriculum because it is the students who are learning about the curriculum and they need the curriculum better than the teacher. Okay, so that is from Priscilla. With regards to the debate on the board, I think teachers should be considered most because they are the ones impacting knowledge. The curriculum holds into the learners, and this therefore makes them the success or the failure of the curriculum. So I think that we are having contributions are coming from both sides. The fact that and the students are doing so well, there are advancing reasons why it should be the learners or the teachers. I think we will also give our stance if we have before we
personally I don't have
the learners and then the students. Okay. So we've delved much into the issue of financial priorities and constraint and the extent to which it influences the school curriculum in terms of the provision of infrastructure, in terms of the provision of curriculum materials, and like you rightly said, when senior high school was 3 years, then 4 years, the first thing that came to mind, even on the minds of most parents, were, hey, so we're going to pay fees for an additional year. Now we even have it as free, but a matter of to what extent is it free? You still have to buy one or two things to support what the government is doing. So financial priorities, in fact, in this country, has a huge implication on the type of curriculum that we are actually implementing. In terms of the development, we could have a rich one, but if we don't have the resources to support it, the implementation becomes a bizarre. Okay, so I think at this point the phone lines are still activated, so dear listeners, you can phone in to make your contribution. 0503 923158 0332 3202 and then 01. We are still on the determinants of the school curriculum. We have looked at the role of society. We have looked at government policy being a determinant of the curriculum. We also looked at the issue of the learners, the teachers. In fact, that is what we are having the debate on. And so we're moving on to look at the philosophy of education. The philosophy of education. How does philosophy of education affect, or how does it serve as a determinant of a school curriculum?
Yes, and so I always say the level of our students makes it a bit difficult to really expose them to philosophy and then the educational philosophy. So what I only tell my students is that you are in this school. There is a certain future you want to get to. Similarly, as a country like Ghana, we have a target.
Hello, dear caller. Can you tell us your name and your department?
Hello, good evening. This is Patrick.
Patrick?
Yes, Patrick.
Yeah, Patrick, let's go.
Level 100, Geography Department.
Geography, great.
Yes, I suggested that learners should be more considered to that of the teachers.
Great.
And my reason being that since learners are the final consumer of the curriculum, they should be more considered. Because, for instance, you pay a friend a visit and then your friend goes to the kitchen or go to the shop or the market to buy all that and bring it to the table, and you will tell the friend that, oh, I'm not interested in the food you bought. So at the end of the day, all that you bought on the table there is wasted.
Great.
So since the learners are the consumers of the curriculum, this is the more considered as to moderate teachers. So that's my suggestion here.
Great, Patrick, yeah, well noted. To you, the learners should be more considered because they are the final consumers of the curriculum. Great.
That is it.
Great. Stay tuned.
Thanks so much. I truly appreciate it.
All right. Okay. So we have another message here before we continue with the philosophy. This one reads about the teachers, pupils, and the curriculum. I think both the teacher and the students are very important factors because one cannot stand on its own. Teachers are there because of students, and students cannot exist without teachers. So they are all important. Aziba, Hypers Department. Okay, so to you, you can't take a stance. Both of them are important. It's just like the teacher can't go to the classroom and talk to the desks, and at the same time, without the teachers, students will also not be enrolled in schools because they cannot come and learn on their own. That was a brilliant one out there. Okay, so we are looking at the extent to which a philosophy of education serves as a determinant of the school curriculum.
And so I was just trying to make the point that every country has a target. You may want to give the Philos and Sophia and all that, but basically, in designing the school curriculum, as a country, you have projections. What kind of future do you have for your citizens? That will become your guiding principle, your philosophy at that time.
Sure.
The kind of philosophy you may have, the kind of future you may have, would be dependent on the kind of things you put in the curriculum. So if you pick the basic school curriculum, now they want to develop mathematically friendly students, students who are technologically oriented. It has an implication on the kind of subjects you should have in your school. The reason why in the old system we were doing so much of RME was that we wanted to develop students who were balanced spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, and then physically.
Sure.
So intellectually, what subjects are we talking about? Science, maths. Emotionally, social studies. Physically, PE. And then spiritually, we will talk about CRS and then RME. So the whole point is that as for philosophy, you have so many of these traditional, both the traditional and the modern philosophies.
All right. Hello. This is Radio WINNEBA. Please, can you? Yeah.
My name is Edcr. English Department, level 100.
Good. Let's go.
Please, I want to find out the reason why when you are trying to find the curriculum. For example, in Accra here.
Please, can you? Hello, dear caller. Yeah, can you lower the volume on your radio set? It's giving us feedback. Yeah.
Is it okay now?
Yes, I think it's better now.
My question is that in designing the curriculum, sometimes I realize that schools within this area, maybe for example, maybe class 2 or class 3, they are able to read or do certain mathematics. But when you go down to the places like, let's say, the level medium and English, so that they can't even read, not even mention certain words. And I don't know what is being taken into consideration in designing the curriculum to favor everybody.
Okay, so if I heard you very well, your point is that in designing the curriculum, usually they focus on the schools in the cities.
Exactly.
Is that a point?
Yes,
at the neglect of the learners in the other remote areas. Am I right?
Yes,
Great.
yes,
Okay. So what account you want to find out the reasons accounting for that?
Why to school? Yeah, why to school?
Great. Okay. All right. So Helena thinks that a school in a small village somewhere behind a river is not considered. Do you agree to that?
Tell him that in Accra we have schools that have worse characteristics than those in his village. And this is where most people get it wrong.
Yeah.
When we say teachers should be involved in curriculum, it doesn't mean we will go and assemble all teachers in Ghana at a time. Those who sit and design, the professors are teachers. We bring teachers from the colleges. When we finish and we are doing tryout or field trial, we involve teachers. When we finish, teachers are part of the workshops. So to an extent, teachers have been part of what? The curriculum. Similarly, when it comes to students, we can't go and bus all students from all the 16 regions in Ghana and ask them, what do you want to see in the curriculum? How should the curriculum look like? But there is a way of sampling from a pool. So the fact that you didn't see anybody in your village does not. That is why anything that we put in the curriculum, we find the average. Averagely, many people should be able to afford this.
Yes.
The fact that maybe in your village the per capita income is low and for that matter people will struggle does not. So we have to wait till everybody gets all the resources before we design a school curriculum. That is practically impossible. So we will design bearing in mind that at least majority of the people can provide. The government is there to support those who need problems.
Yeah.
And that is why as leaders, as aspiring leaders, it is our responsibility that we sometimes go to some of these schools to support them. If we leave everything for the government, that is a Herculean task.
Yeah, and a little bit to that, you realize that when ICT was first introduced, it wasn't even examinable at the earlier years.
Yes.
Because they knew some of these problems existed. There were schools with no computers. There was, in fact, the human resource was also not adequate. So they take their time. We're still studying it.
It is still not adequate.
But now, yes, but you realize that government tried to do something about it before making it an examinable subject. That is the point I'm making. We are aware of all this, but till when? Like you said, with our maintenance culture, which is no good, by the time they finish fixing everything, those ones that have earlier on been developed would have started. Yes, so that is it. Yes, our dear caller, you see, the point is that these characteristics you are talking about, it is never true that they consider only schools in the major cities. In fact, you will find schools in the major cities who are I mean share the same characteristics with those ones in the villages you talking about. But they keep saying, I was telling the students the other day that the fact that you are in a school teaching in a basic school, usually most of these basic schools do not have science laboratories, but the point is that it has been arranged. That is why field trip is there. So you take these students to the nearest senior high school that has a science lab to conduct an experiment or something. You shouldn't sit there and say that because the thing hasn't been given to you, you will continue teaching separation of mixtures on the board, separation of gases, liquid, whatever gas, then you teach it on the board. It shouldn't be so. Take them to, and government has created or has established science laboratory school, have made some schools science resource centers. So it is up to you, the teacher or the school, to arrange and make sure that you get the students understand what they are to learn pertaining to that particular topic. All right, so we are looking at the final one, philosophy of education, and like you rightly said, with the philosophy of education, we're looking at what the nation wants to see itself. What you philosophize, what you see, about how you perceive the entire knowledge that you want your students to acquire, or you want to imbibe in your citizens for a period of years. So it informs you how you see education, for instance, as a country, informs you about what should be taught in schools and what the learners should be made to learn. And so we're looking at the ideologies and the beliefs that we wish to inculcate in the next generation. And so we philosophize around all these issues, and then when it comes to the drawing or the planning and design of the curriculum, we try to cater for all this. If you just joined us, we are having a radio lecture on the determinants of the curriculum, and this evening it has been so wonderful and very interactive. We understand that most of you were at lectures, but the few who are with us, they were able to send us their messages and then take points as far as the determinants of the curriculum is concerned, the teachers and then the learners who should be considered most. And so we looked at government policies, and we said that basically government influence the curriculum through various legislative and administrative acts. And so they determine to some extent how the school runs. And so we will be there before we realize government will introduce a policy. Oh, FQ, free compulsory universal basic education, a policy has come. It behooves the school, the society, and every stakeholder to see to it that this particular policy is being upheld. It's the same way the recent one, which is still fresh on the minds of most of our learners, our students, the free SHS coupled with the double track. In fact, government introduced these policies through legislative acts, and no school came out and said that no, as for this school, we are not going to abide by this double track or whatever. Once government has introduced it, it is a policy. And like my co-discussant said, there is no way that you will tell government that if COVID has come, as for my school, we are not closing down. Government made it a policy and everybody had to abide by it. So with the issue of the double track, schools had to again strategize, close by 2. So planning of the timetable, the duration or period per each of these courses is determined by the government. So to a larger extent, we realize that government plays a key role. They are going to look out for resources. They are going to look out for teachers, recruit teachers who are going to give meaning to their curriculum. So government plays a key role. We did not leave the issue of the society out. We said that societal needs keep changing, and so in determining the curriculum, it is the needs of society that are considered so that the curriculum serves those needs of the society. Our societal needs could be social, political, religious, economic, and so it behooves on the design of the curriculum that whatever plan or whatever draft we come out with has or takes into consideration the diverse needs of society, so that learners will graduate and come and be the change makers. Learners are equally important in curriculum development. We have the learner and their characteristics, so the physical needs of the learner, the social needs, the physiological needs of the learner, amongst others, needs to be taken into consideration. It was through the needs of these learners that capitation grant, the school feeding, and other policies have been taken into consideration, so that we know very well that students cannot learn on empty stomachs. And so it was important to include an aspect of a policy that will make sure that it will increase enrollment, and at the first place, no learner will be left out. Teachers can equally not be undermined in curriculum development. It is these same teachers, after the experts have designed everything, it is the teachers that will need to give meaning. That is actually at the implementation stage, where they even further develop the curriculum. And so it is important that their views are also considered. It is important that we look at the teacher factor in curriculum development. Are they the right people with the right mindset to implement the policy? I mean the curriculum. All these things have to be taken into consideration. We did not leave the role of examination bodies out as far as the factors affecting curriculum implementation or the determinants of curriculum is concerned. Examination bodies also play a key role. They advise curriculum developers about the strengths and weaknesses in the learning styles of students in terms of how they have answered previous examination questions pertaining to the content areas that they have been introduced to. And then finally, we looked at financial priorities and constraints as serving as another determinant of the curriculum in terms of allocating much funds to develop the curriculum, in terms of organizing workshops, providing resources, enough resources to support the curriculum that has been designed. And so financial priorities and constraints, sometimes because of the constraints, and so we are not able to review the curriculum on time in order to cater for the needs of the society. And so this evening, this is how far we came. But before we leave the studios, we have some messages from our students, and this one reads, hello, my name is about the teachers. No, this one, education must not be too expensive and too difficult to practice. I am of the view that if learners at the remote areas are given a greater attention in the designing of the curriculum and even examination, we will see much improvement in more 80% of learners. Okay, so to you, we should consider learners at the remote areas the most at the expense of those at the cities. Yes. So I think this has already been answered where we said both of them are considered. We look at learners both across diverse backgrounds in terms of categorization of the schools. If all of them are taken into consideration, we do not only focus on schools that have all the resources, but we look at those ones. That is why it is always on the average, and the pass mark is always not 100%. All right, so it's been exciting having another episode of the radio lecture with you. I was here in the studios with my colleague Miss OGAH, with my colleague Mr. Stephen APAU, and it's been wonderful having you. We thank you, our dear callers, the technical team. You are not left out. We thank you very much for the wonderful support. We will be here on this same platform next week to have a discussion on the school curriculum, social change, and national development. On this note, have a good evening.